State Senator, Northern Virginia, the 39th District, George Barker, Democrat. He represents part of Alexandria, Fairfax, and Prince William. Senator Barker, good to have you on the show.
Thank you very much, John. Good to be here.
Now, I was the only political pundit that didn't buy into your race was going to be hotly contested. I didn't even rate it. And Senator, once again, I was right.
Well, I'm glad you were.
It's unbelievable, aren't I? I mean, that's like almost 100%. Okay. Senator, why don't we get to, well, first of all, congratulations on your big re-election victory a week ago. Let's start with that.
Thank you.
Let's get to Syrian or Middle Eastern refugees. President Obama over the weekend saying he's not changing his plan to take 100,000 in 2016, more in 2017. How do you stand on these refugees coming to Virginia when many believe that there's not a proper vetting process by the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, raising doubts that we can vet these people properly? Are you in favor of taking them into Virginia?
Well, I think it depends upon the vetting process that's set up, and if there's a proper vetting process that really is thorough and does its job, then I do not have huge concerns about it. We've taken in thousands and thousands of refugees coming into Northern Virginia. Actually, a lot of them end up flying into to Dulles Airport and are handled through to the federal government at that point, and actually a lot of them end up being located in Northern Virginia. So we have a long record of being able to absorb these, and actually many of them have gone on to be extraordinarily productive citizens and really contributed substantially to our economy. I know a lot of people from Syria that have migrated to the U.S. and live here in Northern Virginia and live here legally. I think the issue here is that given the threats that are out there with potential for, in effect, members of ISIS and ISIL to be able to try to penetrate the U.S. by coming in that route, that we need to have a proper vetting process before that, and I would not want to go forward with it if we don't have that.
What do you think about Senator Ted Cruz's idea over the weekend where he said that he would be in favor of taking these refugees, but only if they're Christians?
I think that would be improper. I don't think we should limit it to one particular set of people coming from a country, and I think it would be somewhat discriminatory to do so. I don't think that, obviously there are a number of Christians in Syria and some of the other countries in the Middle East, much more than I think a lot of people realize, but those certainly are potential candidates for being among the refugees, but I don't think we should necessarily restrict it only to them.
Senator, based on what you've heard and seen, are you comfortable right now that the Homeland Security vetting process for these refugees from the Middle East that are coming in, a lot of them males, younger men, they look, certainly when you see them in photographs, they look pretty healthy. Are you confident that we have a vetting process that wouldn't put people in Virginia at risk, sir?
I don't know enough of the details about the vetting process at this point to make a firm decision on that. That would be something we need to look at, obviously, and evaluate that situation. Just being a state senator, not a U.S. senator, right. I'm less involved in those types of things, and so I don't have the information to be able to make a clear decision on that at this point.
Okay, that's an honest statement, an honest answer. We appreciate that. I want to get, if I may, to the hospital crisis we're facing in Virginia right now. Senator, I spent 2 days at the VHHA conference in Bath County, Virginia, Thursday and Friday, sir. And
so you had to drive I had to go all the way to Bath County.
I had to go all the way to Bath. I had to go all the way to Hot Springs. Of course, there's worse places I could be. It is kind of God's
there are
country
worse places you could be. That's for sure. So.
But look, I spent 2 days there, and I'm very interested in this topic because rural hospitals are going out of business in Virginia. They're in the red. They're not making money. They're shutting services down. And I'm tired of the Medicaid expansion argument because, Senator, we're not going to get Medicaid expansion in Virginia. It's too politicized. And we can go back and forth with the arguments. It isn't going to happen. But my question to every state General Assembly member that comes on is, how can we solve this crisis we have in rural Virginia hospitals?
Well, I think there are a number of things that can be done to help alleviate it. Obviously, one of the major problems that's out there right now is that a lot of the rural hospitals end up with a disproportionately large share of uninsured people.
Right.
Many of those rural areas have a lot of people who don't have the types of jobs that have health insurance coverage.
Right.
And so they're the ones that fall through the crack, and that's part of what impacts them. Obviously, Medicaid expansion would make a difference on there, but if we're not going to do Medicaid expansion, we need to figure out other ways to address that situation. One of the things that is happening now that is helping some of those rural hospitals is that some of the larger systems are, in effect, taking over some of the smaller rural hospitals in a number of communities around the Commonwealth, and that's providing them some stability, because even if the rural hospital loses a little bit of money, they don't go out of business because they have the support of the larger system. VCU's done this. There are a number of others that have done some of these types of things. That has not solved all the problems, and there clearly are still a number of small hospitals, and there are a whole host of things that we need to look at doing to address that. One of the issues that we run into with a lot of those rural hospitals is they have very few physicians serving their area. Part of that is because we don't have enough medical residencies in Virginia, so we get a lot of people educated through the medical schools and osteopathic schools, but then they go somewhere else for their residency program and they don't come back. And that has contributed to our shortage. So we're looking at some things that we can do to increase the number of residency slots. That'll take a little time to have an impact, but over time it will help stabilize things. And we're also looking at enhancing the amount of money we have in some of the loan repayment programs. Virginia has actually taken very little advantage of loan repayment programs that are available, whereby someone who has gotten a medical degree, say through a university in Virginia, through a medical college in Virginia, gets the state ends up paying off part of their debt that they've run up if they will go to an underserved rural area. That makes a big difference in those communities, because you get someone there, and actually a lot of those people stay beyond the 3 years that they're required to do that, once they've established themselves in those local communities. So those are some of the types of things that we can do, but we need to move aggressively and quickly to get them done, or else we'll lose a lot of people, lose a lot of those hospitals.
Hey, Senator, that partial loan repayment idea you mentioned, boy, that sounds like a great idea. A lot of municipalities have done this for attracting teachers to higher risk areas by paying them higher, and that's worked exceptionally well. Is that something that we might see come out of the 2016 General Assembly? I think that's a great idea.
Yes, I'm on the Virginia. I'm vice chair of the Virginia Health Workforce Development Authority. Actually, the chair is Delegate Joseph Yost, and that is one of the things that we are looking at right now. Recommending, and I do expect some proposals to come forward from the administration on this, probably in their budget proposal. So I think those are some very positive steps that can be taken. As I said, we haven't taken advantage of that the way many of our surrounding states have.
What do you think of the Governor McAuliffe floating the idea of the provider tax, Senator Barker? What do you make of that?
I think it is something that is. I think there's a very good chance that will happen. How much it will be, how it will be used, a lot of that has yet to be determined. So that will still be a process on that. But what it does is it gives us some leverage for being able to draw down some additional federal money to help to address some of these issues. And one of the issues that could be addressed is some of these residency programs. Medicaid is one of the residency programs historically were funded almost exclusively by Medicare, but Medicare rates and the number of slots that they pay for has been frozen for almost a quarter of a century now. So that is no longer the path to getting any significant increase in residency slots. The provider tax could address that. It could address some of the things related to trauma care, which is part of how the discussion got started a year and a half ago on this. And I think there are a number of other options, so I think it's definitely on the table.
All right, so look, the bottom line is we need money in order to fund some of these hospitals, right? The Republican-controlled House of Delegates right now is not going to pass any tax increase at all. So it's not like you can propose an idea that says, look, let's raise sales tax by a half a cent, and then we can fund Medicaid expansion. We can get other people on it. We can solve this. That isn't going to happen. Medicaid expansion isn't going to happen. So you have to kind of figure out how to get around the edges. But I guess I'm looking for somebody to come up with a out-of-the-box idea that could get people together on both sides of the aisle and say, this is a funding mechanism that makes sense to give people coverage that they do not have today. And if we don't do that, these hospitals in these rural areas are simply going to fail. What do you see as that?
Yeah, and I think that's definitely the case, and I don't disagree with your conclusions in terms of we're not going to do a tax increase, so that's not something that's really on the table. So that's why we have to look creatively at some of these other things. And the interesting thing is that the idea for provider tax was brought forward by a number of the major hospital systems themselves, including Centera down in your area. Right. They were a leader in that back in 2014 when they first surfaced this idea. And basically they were saying, look, we have some significant challenges that we're facing. Let's be creative in terms of how we address them, and we're willing to be part of the solution to addressing that.
We go into 2016. You simply can't put your head in the sand and make believe this problem is going to go away. And this idea, look, and I don't like big government, and I'd like people to get involved, but this idea that you're going to get mobile health wagons going around Southwest Virginia like a third world country, and somehow this is going to solve the problem is totally asinine. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I mean that's not a solution. I appreciate what those programs do, and they certainly do provide some short-term help to some people. But what you really need are comprehensive services, and what you need for people is a medical home, not a one day a year type of event where people can come get some care and then they have to wait till 12 months before they're back again.
Okay, so do you think Senator Barker that McAuliffe's idea of the hospital provider tax might be an option?
Well, I think it clearly is an option, and the interesting thing is it's not his idea. This was an idea brought forward by the hospitals themselves. So it was not something that McAuliffe cooked up to go talk to the hospitals. It's something the hospitals came forward with and said, here's a way in which we can help solve some of these problems and we can be part of the solution. And there have been, as I understand it, been in discussions with the administration on it. I don't think things are resolved yet as to what may or may not be proposed. But it is certainly something that should be considered.
All right. It sounds like something that we'll all be able to have an honest and healthy debate on. I want to thank Senator George Barker for being with us, representing the 39th District State Senator from representing Alexandria, Fairfax, and Prince William.